The weather disaster in the Western Cape has many layers of impact to it. So let's try to understand how people are affected, what responses would be optimal right now, and how my next panel of guests believes the Western Cape government is responding. So we're joined by Jean-Ray Knighton-Fitt, who's with the U-Turn Homeless Ministries, Ali Sablay, who's with the Gift of the Givers in the Western Cape, Lorenzo is with the Justice Fund, and Booi, Head of Political Organising at Ndifuna, Ukwazi. Good evening to all of you, and thank you so much for making time. I imagine that all of you are very, very busy at this moment trying to do the work that you ordinarily do. So thank you very much for being with us tonight. And the country can understand many convergent, urgent needs at the same time: shelter, food, medical assistance, housing, and so on. And we actually heard from the Western Cape Minister for Mobility in the province about roads, 87 roads being cut off, and people really, in a sense, cut off from life as they've known it before. So I want to start with you, Jean-Ray. The needs are great. For an organization like yours, how do you prioritize?
Look, our approach is always rehabilitation. So we have a long-term approach with people on the street. Obviously, we work with homeless people. And so we generally prioritize people who are ready and willing and open to take the journey off the streets. Obviously, there's huge challenges at the moment, especially with weather like we've had, with people being trapped on the streets. We have large numbers of people willing and ready to come off the streets, willing to go into rehabilitation, and insufficient shelter. So it's a massive challenge. And the areas we work, certainly a lot of it is first come, first served basis. And then in terms of long-term rehabilitation, it's those who are most ready, most able to take that journey.
So would you say weather like this, events like this, are a setback to this long-term program that you have?
Yes and no. Sometimes bad weather actually forces people to kind of reevaluate where they are and be willing to kind of take stock of their lives and move on. But at the same time, it can be extremely traumatic to be trapped in this kind of weather, this kind of environment. People lose what they have, and trauma always militates against rehabilitation. It's something which sets people back typically in many, many ways.
So, Buhle, I want to come to you next, and you're at the forefront of lobbying for access to things like affordable housing. When something like this happens, how does it expose the greatness of the need?
Thank you so much. I think I must first send messages of condolences to people of COVID-19 in Buhle, who've lost their lives, some of them who've lost their lives because of the floods. So our hearts go out to those families that have lost their loved ones. To the question, I think it's very important to say that the municipalities have a responsibility to proactively plan for such disasters, flooding and fires. So it cannot be that every year we're encountering the same situation when Disaster Risk Management Act gives mandate to municipalities to proactively plan for these events. So it's disappointing that there isn't a proactive plan for these things, but also equally for people that are in flooding, in informal settlements, the state has a responsibility of providing suitable alternative land for people. The state must release land that is suitable for people to be relocated to. Areas such as Mfuleni cannot exist in floodplains because that puts people at risk. So it's very important then that prime land is made available so that people can live in land that is habitable, so that people do not, or rather not at risk of losing their lives, trying to find a place to call a home, trying to find a place to call a shelter. And we must recognize that people have been failed in the process by this housing system. People have fallen in the cracks of this housing system. 600,000 people in the Western Cape on the waiting list. And the state must accelerate the delivery of housing so that people do not find themselves in this very shameful and life of indignity in informal settlements. People losing their lives is very sad.
This is the perennial problem, Buhle, as you've said. So this is something that has been experienced in the past. I know the city's responded by saying it's made many thousands of housing opportunities available, and that it's also been releasing the kind of land that you say you're after. So what is missing in their response?
No, you can't say that the city cannot continue to peddle that it's responding to the need of people. If it was responding, it would have a proactive plan to deal with such issues. But equally, even on the question of land release, I think they're correct and we must commend them when they're doing good. But it's not enough, to say that they're releasing piles of land when they're not building actual housing. The housing delivery in the city of Cape Town has been on the decline since 2014. So the issue of ceremonially releasing land is not helping people. People need actual housing. The state must build and provide job structures to people. But equally, what is of essence here in these situations, it's a proactive plan. The state must play its role as mandated by the disaster risk management plan. Not be caught on a situation where the mayor and the officials are seen on the streets on events like this when they should have played their role in proactively preventing such incidents from happening. At least people losing their lives in these situations, they must proactively plan.
Thanks for that, Buhle, and we might circle back to that point if we can. But Lorenzo, I want to turn it over to you. And for a long time, you've been working in the space with NGOs, funding, NGOs along projects that talk directly to some of the community needs. Share with us the picture from their perspective in terms of the experience and the response.
Thank you, Man. I think the challenge that we have right now is one of where more than 60%, 61, 62% of the Western Cape Town's population live in poverty. What they've just gone through now exacerbates that statistic, that reality for them. They are now worse off. They've had the SASSA debacle, they've now had the storm, they've lived with lack of access to housing, and so this triple helix poverty is now upon them. And there are three things that needs to happen immediately that the city must respond to and the province must respond to. One is personal safety. The people who are already subjected to gang violence, to crime, are now even more exposed in their vulnerability due to the storm. The second thing they must have is residential security. They don't have residential security. The city must respond to residential security to those who've lost informal housing and formal housing. And the third thing that they must secure is food security. And so what we don't need right now is to compartmentalize these interventions and again split the poverty narrative into I'm doing something but I'm not really doing everything. What people on the ground want is a comprehensive response from the state, be it local, provincial or national, to their plight. People can't go on living with extended experiences of poverty as they have been over the last while. And that's what the government is not getting right. They keep compartmentalizing individual interventions as a crisis response and not a comprehensive response. And people are really angry about that. The people I've spoken to now over the last 48 hours have a real sense of they are now going to wait even longer for the kind of interventions they require because now the government is using the storm as the next feeble attempt to address an intervention or to address a solution, and they're not getting to the real comprehensive demands that the people want.
So what's the missing link here? I mean, we talk about politicking, for example, and some of the divisions and the chasms that exist between the way national government deploys and responds in disasters like this as opposed to the provincial government. You talked about the siloized effect around how people are dealing with, creating dimensions in a crisis such as this, which really, in a very tragic way, brings all of it together. So how should they be acting better? People watching what's happening there, what kinds of questions should be asked of the provincial government and the national government?
I think my other three colleagues on this call are doing amazing work in this sector. And I think we need to understand that unless the government plays a coordinating role of bringing role players into the room who can work with them in a comprehensive manner instead of a siloed manner, as you said, to deal with this issue. The worst thing we can do right now is, again, to stand out, dishing out food, but not paying attention to personal security, dishing out a tent, but not seeing to housing, dishing out protection from the neighborhood watch, but people are still living in a field somewhere. This is the South African problem. We keep feeding this kind of narrative that as long as government is doing something, it's okay. And quite frankly, it's no longer okay. What we need is the homeless must be addressed, food security must be addressed, housing must be addressed. And unless a government like the City of Cape Town or the provincial government in the Western Cape brings coordinating responsibilities together, we are going to fail what is now an urgent response to this crisis. And this is what they're not doing. Where's the coordinating that brings these people together, Gifts of the Givers, U-Turn, Ndifuna and Ukwazi, and a host of other role players that says, guys, we're in this together.
Yeah.
Let's see what we can fix here.
Jean-Ray, would you concur with that, with that assessment?
Absolutely. I think there's so many systemic issues. The flooding raises certain issues and it exacerbates issues. But exactly as Lorenzo said, there's too much, and it's not just government, I think it's society in general, that dishes out a little bit of help to an individual here or there and fails to see the deeper systemic issues which are driving poverty in general, the great issues of trauma and dysfunction that so many people grow up with across the Cape Flats, but not just in Cape Town, across the entire country, across the entire continent. And these things have to be addressed, as well as the symptomatic issues or the relief issues that we have now in the face of flooding, etc. So absolutely concur with that. A lot more depth of thought needs to go in, and serious. I think often what happens with government is things run in election cycles. So we need to be seen to be doing something in order to get votes, etc. That's maybe quite pointed, but what we need is long-term, proper solutions that deal with root causes of poverty, of homelessness, of unemployment, and then crime, gangsterism, all of the issues that we face that's in this tangled, messy web that people find themselves in.
We speak to officials, and in fact we've done that tonight and since the beginning of this disaster, particularly in the Western Cape. Of course, as a country, we've collectively been here before in terms of what's happened in other places, KwaZulu-Natal as one example that I can share with you. One of the responses the city or the Western Cape government will give is, but we've done all of these different things. We've got a disaster management team that's together so people can go there. And we are given this impression that they really are on top of things and that their responses are apt for the challenge at hand. What you're sharing with us is painting a very different picture to what we're being told. So Buhle, as we continue to hold officials' feet to the fire, what are some of the other things you really want us as a public broadcaster to raise with them based on the experience that you're having, actually meeting people face to face and being in their lives and their lived experience every day?
One of the very important things to say is that in as much as there are mechanisms in place for the municipality to respond to these issues insofar as the disaster risk management team, people are lodging complaints and they do get reference numbers, but these teams get to these communities and they take pictures, and there's nothing necessarily that they are doing to help the communities because they have found a depth in terms of really providing solutions to the issues. In as much as we should appreciate that there is a landline that is out there and that people are using, but people are not necessarily getting the help that they need from the service. But it's very important to then say that the City of Cape Town and municipalities across the country, they need to make sure, especially for people that are living in informal settlements whose homes are shattered, they have no homes as we speak. The city needs to make a plan for emergency housing for people in such situations. But equally, I do want to say that in as much as it is the responsibility of government to proactively plan for such disasters, we all collectively have a responsibility as government and civil society to work together to assist communities so that people do not find themselves in these situations. everyone in society needs to be working together during these difficult times so that people do not continue to lose their lives like this.
Lorenzo, I want to give you the quick 60-second final word on this. The stories are harrowing. The deaths are just tragic. So many families weeping and mourning tonight for the loss of life, others for the loss of everything that they've ever owned, and the uncertainty of what happens in the next step. All of you have pointed to a really important need for better coordination. So why has it not been happening, and how can it happen now?
It hasn't been happening because it's never been an issue. It's never been a priority. It's never been a mandate. And that's the challenge. Once government realizes that this should be their mandate, then it might happen. And the second thing, that the reason why it doesn't happen, or why it should happen now, is because we have to understand that unless government brings everybody together and they place them in the same room and they place them in the same WhatsApp group, for want of a better expression, it's never going to take place. So coordination now to deliver comprehensive feedback is what is required now. Comprehensive solutions is what is required now. Siloed responses is not going to work at all.
Right.
We're just deepening poverty.
Thank you so much to each of you. Again, good luck with the work that you're doing. I hope everyone that you love is safe and that you're still able to make an impact where you are. Jean-Ray Knighton-Fitt is the U-Turn with the U-Turn Homeless Ministries. I'm sad that we lost Ali Sablay from Gift to the Givers, but hopefully we can still talk to him. Lorenzo Davis with the Justice Fund and Buhle Booi with Ndifuna Ukwazi. Really appreciate your time tonight. Well, we're going to continue to keep a focus on weather. And as you heard there certainly needs to be better coordination